Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Big O Belt. We are excited to do a review for a new horror film coming out called It Lives Inside. I am joined by Zero Gravity, and we are here to talk about the new supernatural horror film It Lives Inside, directed and written by award-winning director Bishal Dutta and starring Megan Suri. So the film is distributed by Neon. It's a horror thriller, PG-13 for bloody images, and it will be releasing September 22nd in theaters. So first, I just want to say I'm excited for a new way of seeing a new mythology that we haven't really been introduced to with Indian mythology and Hinduism. So for me, that was definitely a pull, seeing like a new, I guess, a format for like a horror film that we haven't really seen before. And
hmm
otherwise, I guess, kind of, you want to tell me what you thought about it before I get too into it?
well, the backing behind this movie seems like reputable sources with ties to Blumhouse and some background from Get Out, which we actually recognize a character later on who is playing a supporting role that you might recognize. But from the beginning, I was pretty interested. Same thing as you, I was definitely curious about how we can put a cultural spin on a formula that we already know with elements that we don't know yet, which is very cool. And what makes it even better is that it's written, directed by somebody who has firsthand experience with that culture. Because we all know what it looks like when somebody tries to own concepts that they're not actually familiar with culturally. But this one we can trust and we can get behind. So I was definitely looking forward to this one. Even though these supernatural movies usually come with a pretty strict formula, it definitely has elements that we haven't seen before. And for that reason, I was like, sign me up.
So the synopsis is basically it's a girl desperate to fit in at school. Sam rejects her East Indian culture and family to be like everyone else. However, when a mythological demon spirit latches onto her former best friend, she must come to terms with her heritage to defeat it. So it took like a normal like teen trope kind of route, like a girl is starting high school and she wants to become part of like the popular kids, so she leaves behind her best friend. But what's a little different with this film is, like we mentioned, with the Indian culture, Sam is really trying to embrace, like, like the American dream and suburban life and trying to fit in and kind of like pushes away her cultural identity, which alienates her best friend. So I guess for you, kind of, how did you feel about like the characters, and do you think they were well developed and or pretty cliche?
I do. And I think this is something that's pretty, besides the whole demonology part, pretty realistic, right? As Americans, it's very common for us to have like these multicultural experiences. And, maybe a lot of us grew up with kids who are, learning the ways of being first generation American and deciding whether or not they want to fit in completely. I understand that it's like a weird spot to be put into, and I do think that that's a great way to create a layered character because one, it's super relatable. Even if you aren't somebody who grew up as first generation, whatever your background may be, there's a lot of people that can kind of fit into this box. If you're just different, you're weird, or I don't know, maybe you are disabled or you have freckles or something that alienates you from the rest of your peers in such a delicate time like high school, which I'm assuming this is high school, right? So everyone has been in those shoes, but I think this one really like speaks to immigrants. But if you have a character that's going through this like really, sensitive time that everyone's been through, it's really easy to create a believably flawed character. And something that I know pisses all of us off when we watch horror movies is when, characters start making dumb decisions in order to move the plot forward, right? Like, oh, why would she do that? Why would she go down those stairs? If I were her, I wouldn't do that. But we all kind of remember what it was like being in high school and, figuring out who we were, how to fit in and stuff like that. Some people more than others, but it's understandable. Like the choices that she makes to lead up to, the catastrophe that ends up happening in her high school, in her family, in her neighborhood, small town, whatever. Um, And it just seems like overall a more believable story, but also like a pretty calm one. But I appreciated the way that they, lined up their characters that way because it just makes sense.
Yeah, I think it was like we said, like pretty predictable teen horror story formula. Even without knowing Hindu mythology or beliefs, we still kind of could figure out the movie. And I think they essentially had like the best parts in the trailer. It wasn't as scary as I would have enjoyed. But I still really like enjoyed I guess like seeing like the Indian culture and the mythology introduced in it. And I guess they did a really good job, like, on sound. That was one thing that stood out to me because even when you didn't typically see the creature, I forgot how to say it, it was like an Indian term, but I guess they're like devil. You
Hmm.
didn't really see him much, and the sound kind of instilled, like, moments of fear with, like, just noise, so I think they did a really good job on that.
Yeah, I think so too. Um, Later in the movie, we kind of get like this a little touch of like creature feature in there. Because later on, you do see a lot of whatever this entity is that's haunting our characters. And something that's super important to creature design is also the sound. And I did think about that because I've been on like this Foley kick recently where I'm watching movies and I'm thinking about, like I wonder how they got to that point, you know. And I actually just watched some special features from A
Ooh.
Quiet Place,
Oh,
and
I gotta see that.
throwback, right?
I love it.
And the Foley artists were talking about how they were able to design the sound of the aliens based off of the fact that they can't see and they have uh, very strong hearing, so they are basing it off this group of animals. I did wonder that a lot, how we got to this sound, because it's very animalistic, but also you can really tell how evil this demon is because it's almost like the growls turn into laughs at some point. There is like some real like mockery going on, which puts it more in like the supernatural entity that like has a purpose instead of just, ooh, big scary creature. But I did think about that and I appreciated it because it was there at the beginning, it was there at the middle, and it was there at the end, and we have a better picture of what this thing is that's following her a bunch. But little things like that, they definitely pique my interest and definitely creates a fuller character, or a better idea of what it is you should be scared of right now.
I think they did a pretty good job of that too with, like, initially the first person not believing it, but then you see, like, how they transcend, I guess, into this, like, stoic, like, "I'm terrified, like, no one believes me, I look like a psychopath," and I guess they did a pretty good job of, like, showing how, like, it can happen to anyone, and then
Hmm.
how it, like, passes down to, like, the next person without, like, giving anything away.
Yeah, it almost kind of felt like, you know not to get all Christmassy, but kind of like the ghosts of like Christmas past,
Ah.
but something that comes to get you, if you are trying to hide or throw away or forget about a part of yourself or a part of like your identity, and this guy shows up and you know kind of punishes you or shames you for the things that you're either trying to forget, or hiding from yourself, because that was a pattern with the rest of the victims, which you will see in a movie, I
Yeah.
promise you. Yes,
It's
but
kinda like a karma thing too in a sense.
yeah. It's like I get it because kids just want to be kids, but everyone should be proud of their heritage, and at least, at the very least, respect it. And this is kind of like, this is what happens when you don't appreciate your history. I guess it's easy to fall into, especially with how um, aggressive like American, um, social values can be, and
I was
I
gonna
do
say,
get
yeah, the
it.
white people turned on him real quick.
Real quick, man. And even like, the friends, the allies of the characters, like in the film, um, will sneak something in right there, and that's definitely a microaggression. And you definitely can't downplay like how much those comments really affect people. So it just adds to the
Mm.
believability of, oh, this girl, she's probably sick of being the Indian girl at school. Like, I understand why she would be reacting this way. But again, it's nothing like groundbreaking, it's not reinventing the wheel. It's just a very similar story, but from like perspective that we haven't seen before, which I do like. I'm really not mad at it.
Yeah, it's like a very derivative story. Like we've seen this 1,000 times, but like we mentioned a few times already, like the Hinduism, we've never seen that before. So I did really like respect that aspect.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
it was still enjoyable. Like there was a few like jump scares and like cool like
There was
imagery, but
actually, I won't say specifically, but when you see it, viewers, you will
mhm.
see it. There's one moment that actually got me good, and I'm a little bit of a stickler for like jump scares. I think personally, as a movie watcher, I'm more for the atmosphere of terror that grows with you, as opposed to the just boom, "Ooh, I'm scared," and then you forget about it a second later. It's the images that, you might take for granted when you see them, but then when you go to sleep at night, you remember that one really scary image. And there was a couple of those in here where I had a audible "oh shit" while I was sitting on the couch just now. Um, but I appreciate that too, and it actually reminds me a little bit of the Boogeyman that came out earlier
Yeah.
this year. We had some really strong imagery, things that
Oh,
you may
yes.
consider to be nightmare fuel. The themes of lurking in the shadows. Is it a hung up shirt? Is it a pile of laundry in the corner?
The
Or,
closet.
yeah,
Always that
what's
closet.
actually in the closet? It's always the closet, man.
It's
It's
like just
always.
put a light in the closet, leave it on.
I know, and just call it a day, please, because we've been down this road before. We really have.
And then so I just want to say Megan Suri who played Sam and Mohana Krishnan played Tamira. I think that both of them did a really good job and I would like to see I guess other roles of them going forward because I think they both did a really good job like transitioning between like I guess kind of like a normal teenager and interacting like with their culture and their families and their friends and then also like in this moment of like terror like how they switched up so I
Yeah,
would like to see them going forward.
when we have these more intense scenes in this film, um, when we know that like our characters, the girls, are seeing things, they are so good. They
Mhm.
have the best, like, it's a look that somebody gets when they see something that they just can't believe. And I watch a lot of horror, Nadia, and I know that you do too. And it's really easy to tell when that's not an easy look to fake, you know. And
Even in the
so I'm
trailer, that because we get
yes,
to talk about that moment in the trailer where she's looking at her teacher and, like, her eyes
hmm
shift, like, slowly watching, like, she did a really good job on, like,
she
building
killed.
up the fear.
Like, what is it exactly that she's seeing? But both of those girls do that very well. And I actually had the thought, I really hope that they continue to use horror as a vehicle in their
Mhm.
careers, because that stare it's almost scarier than what you would imagine to be on the other side. Just looking at their pure fear is just another super believable part of this movie, and I definitely applaud them for that. And I think all the performances in this film were great, but the two girls especially definitely knocked it out of the park, and hoping that they may be scream queens soon, very soon.
Another thing too that I wanna point out, Betty Gabriel was the teacher, right, Joyce?
Yeah,
Um, I like that she was, like, because you know how, I guess, in most, like, horror things, like, if you tell your teacher something, they kind of, like, I don't know, don't necessarily like really listen to you, but I felt like Joyce like I don't know, she really seemed like she genuinely cared And I guess that was
Mhm.
kind of like her role in the movie. Like she was like somebody that they could trust. And I guess being a woman of color, I think that that was also probably on purpose because it was someone that the main characters could feel comfortable talking to.
Totally. I mean, you can't just go to anyone, especially as what it seems like a a brown girl at a PWI. Um, definitely makes you an outlier and whittles down your options of who you can talk to and who you can be honest with, let alone something supernatural and totally out there. But I mean, we could even like get a little layered with it and say, if it wasn't actually a supernatural whatever, um the feeling that she's having of just like complete panic and just um petrified, you know living your life day to day petrified of what you could possibly be doing to yourself by ignoring a part of your own heritage and who you are as a person. That could be a lot. That's something that you should be able to talk to your guidance counselor, or whoever you have to help you on campus. But that's, not always the case because let's be real, just because somebody's put in a position that's like, oh, I'm here to help you, doesn't mean that they actually will sit down and listen. But I think she does a really good job at it. Like, she definitely seems like a very nurturing person.
Mhm.
I did sense that she was a little skeptical at first, which, who wouldn't be?
True.
Anyone would be in their right mind. But um the fact that she tried, and there's one moment in the film that you can see when she does change her mind and decides that, I'm going to try my best to believe and see if I can help this girl out. And it was sweet, and I liked it. I thought she was a perfect cast, and it also, I haven't seen her since Get Out, and I was like,
Yeah.
wow, good to see you, girl.
And then I guess any other like closing moments or anything else that stood out?
I really like the way that this film was colored. Um, I really like the poster, like the poster cover of this film is really like strong and beautiful. I think a lot of it's like kind of a trendy thing to have like minimalistic, um, like film covers. Like,
Corpus's.
it's just like with the times, I guess. It's like modern. It's like, but this one was just like so dark and full of color. And that's how the film is too. Everything is very deep, warm colors like reds, yellows, oranges pop everywhere. It seems like there's always some aspect of the frame that's going to have this themed color. And it gets more intense when the entity starts to come out, the deeper into the shit we get. And that's definitely some sort of, you know, um, message for, you know, is the entity listening? Is this a point that the entity is actually involved? How early does this begin? We might not ever know, but it's unfortunate because the colors are really pretty, but I don't think what they represent is something that we should be excited for. But regardless, the film as a whole was colored really nice, and that's one of the first things I wrote down in my notes. What about you?
I guess for me, like I said, the sound really stood out for me because it's not always like I think sometimes horror movies work when you don't necessarily see the creature or see the ghost or see the demon
Totally,
because
yeah.
that builds up the fear rather than we said like a jump scare or just seeing something chasing you down the hallway. Like you're walking somewhere and the lights suddenly turn off or the lights suddenly turn on. Like either way it happened in the movie, it was like I don't see anything. What the hell is going on? Like it's
Mm-hmm.
that I guess that brings more like intensity. Like the lights come closer to you or as you walk into the room like the lights turn off or something turns on behind you. Like sometimes those little moments bring more fear than a creature.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I mean, I think, and it seems like you think less is more, especially when it comes to horror. And I do think that the director is understanding of that concept too, because although the whole movie was like a little bit underwhelming, they definitely used that to their advantage. The less is more joint. It was all over this one.
I agree, especially when it comes to like demonic type stuff. Sometimes the less is
Mm-hmm.
more works way better.
Totally. Yeah. Because the more we see, the more we're like,
Eh.
Okay, yeah.
Just stab it. Can't
Right?
stab it if you don't see it.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes, but I would recommend it. I would recommend that we check out It Lives Inside in theaters starting September 22nd. Please open your wallets for ethnic filmmakers because
Yes.
we owe it to them and we need more ethnic stories in our genres or in our fandoms. And this one wasn't half bad. So imagine if we open up our wallets and we show up to the theater on opening day, the possibilities that could come out for the next filmmaker in line with a story that we are owed as fans. But yes, anything else, Nadia?
No, yeah, go check it out.
All right, let us know in the comments if you've seen it. Are you excited? Any theories? I love them theories. But until next time, y'all, see ya.